There is a quiet reason why the most powerful person in any room is almost always the one saying the least. When you feel the constant need to explain yourself, fill every silence, or justify your actions, you aren't communicating strength. You are broadcasting an inability to control your own impulses. And if people see that you cannot control your own tongue, they will never trust you to control a business, a complex situation, or a room full of decision makers. Power has a sound, and very often, that sound is silence. People frequently look at the laws of human strategy and call them cold, calculated, or manipulative, but that completely misses the point. Strategy isn't about hurting people, it is about waking up to reality. It is a defense mechanism. If you refuse to understand how human nature actually works, you don't become morally superior. You simply become an easy target for those who do. Look at how most people approach their ambitions. They get trapped in what can only be called dead time. They wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or 100% certainty before taking a step. But certainty is an illusion. If you wait until you feel completely ready, you are already late. Real strategic leverage comes from forcing time, taking action just before you feel entirely prepared, throwing yourself across the river, and letting the pressure pull out a level of focus and energy you didn't know you had. The reason so many people fail to achieve grand goals isn't a lack of talent, it's that their plans are infected with wishes. They dream about the victory, the launch, or the recognition, but they fail to map out steps A, B, C, and D. And when the first obstacle hits them in the face, they get overwhelmed and give up. If you want to plan all the way to the end without collapsing under the weight of it, you have to master the art of micro goals. You keep the grand vision in the back of your mind to keep your spirit alive, but your daily focus shrinks down to the single brick right in front of you. You don't write a book, you write a page. You don't build a company overnight. You execute today's target before the sun goes down. We live as though time is infinite, as though we have endless tomorrows to fix our habits, overcome our fears, or pursue our real work. But the moment you realize how fragile and brief your time actually is, everything shifts. The petty distractions lose their grip. The fear of failure vanishes. Time stops being an abstract number on a clock and becomes a visceral, precious reality. True power is never about noise, aggression, or forcing your will onto the world. True power is self-mastery. It is knowing when to step back, when to hold your tongue, and when to act with total conviction. Stop over-explaining. Stop waiting for permission. Break the vision down into steps you can execute today. And let your results speak louder than your words ever could. Most people assume power is loud, that it is about pushing harder, demanding respect, or winning every single argument. But the deepest form of influence is never aggressive, it is adaptive. When someone brings conflict into your life, your natural instinct is to react, defend, or fight back. That is an emotional reflex, and reflexes are completely predictable. The moment you lose your temper or get pulled into petty battles, you hand the other person full control over your focus and your mind. Real strength lies in the ability to yield, to step back, let the noise fade, and allow other people to exhaust their own aggressive momentum. Soft power doesn't break under pressure. It bends, observes, and wins in the long run. To navigate the world effectively, you also have to stop being naive about human nature. There are individuals who operate purely on self-interest and aggression. Ignoring this reality doesn't make you morally superior. It makes you vulnerable. You do not need to become malicious to protect yourself, but you must become sharp. You need to understand how people think, recognize hidden motives, and develop the self-control required so you never become a victim of someone else's strategy. We often view setbacks, failures, or periods of weakness as interruptions to our life, but those difficult moments are precisely where character is built. When circumstances force you to slow down, when you face a loss or realize you aren't as independent as you thought, you are given a rare opportunity to develop genuine empathy and humility. Understanding human suffering, including your own, gives you a level of insight that no book or quick strategy can ever teach you. Every single day, you are forced to choose between alive time and dead time. Dead time occurs when you let life happen to you, when you wait passively for circumstances to improve, waste your focus on distractions, or complain about things you cannot change. Alive, time happens when you turn every experience, good or bad, into fuel. You use every setback to learn, every interaction to practice emotional control, and every waking hour to build something meaningful. Mastery is not a finish line you cross, it is an ongoing daily discipline. It is cultivated in the quiet decisions nobody ever sees, choosing composure over anger, focus over distraction, and action over endless planning. Stop looking for easy paths, stop expecting the world to cater to your hopes, and commit entirely to self mastery. When you learn to govern your own mind, everything else falls into place. Most people want the finish line without the relentless miles it takes to get there. They dream of the finished masterpiece, the thriving business, or the ultimate achievement, but they detest the quiet, tedious work of laying the foundation brick by single brick. Real mastery is built in obscurity. It requires you to fall in love with the unsexy process, the endless research, the monotonous repetitions, and the constant refinement when no one is watching. If you only love the fantasy of winning, your commitment will evaporate the second boredom or difficulty takes over. Notice how quickly weak individuals resort to force. They shout, make demands, and try to bully circumstances into submission, only to create deeper resistance and hostility. Force is a lazy substitute for strategy. If you genuinely want to influence people, you never attack their ego head on. You master the subtle arts of persuasion, stepping back, listening, mirroring their actions, and showing them how your goal serves their own self-interest. Loud aggression creates bitter enemies. Calm strategy builds quiet alliances. Comfort is a silent killer of human potential. It lulls you into believing you have infinite time, that mediocre effort is acceptable, and that tomorrow will automatically bring a better version of yourself. But ease breeds weakness. The most effective minds don't run from difficulty, they intentionally seek out friction. They create their own high stakes environments because they understand that urgency and pressure are the only tools that force dormant talent to rise to the surface. Superficial influence chases constant applause, but true power rests on unshakable self-respect. If your ambition depends entirely on external validation, you will always be a prisoner to other people's opinions. The moment the praise stops, your drive disappears. But when you anchor your purpose to internal discipline, knowing you held yourself to the highest standard regardless of who noticed, you become impossible to manipulate or discourage. Stop waiting for some ideal future moment to start taking control of your life. The habits you tolerate today in private are writing the exact story of your future. Lower your voice, eliminate the noise, focus entirely on the step right in front of you, and let the undeniable weight of your results do all the talking. The greatest danger to your ambitions is almost never your enemies, it is your own self-deception. When you embark on a new journey, your mind naturally paints a rosy scenario where obstacles dissolve and success arrives effortlessly. But the world is cold, indifferent, and utterly unconcerned with your wishes. Real strategy demands that you strip away your desires and confront the darkest possibilities before they hit you. If you refuse to look at potential obstacles today, they will inevitably crush you tomorrow. We live in a culture that glorifies total independence, tempting people to believe that relying on others is a fatal flaw, but radical individualism is often nothing more than a mask for impatience and pride. Life will eventually bring moments that shatter your illusion of complete control, whether through sudden failure, illness, or unavoidable loss. True maturity isn't about pretending you are invincible. It is about cultivating deep empathy and understanding that true strength includes knowing how to navigate vulnerability. Nothing of genuine value in this life is ever free, yet so many people spend their days hunting for shortcuts. They want power without discipline, authority without sacrifice, and wisdom without the painful lessons that produce it. When you attempt to get something for nothing, you surrender your autonomy and place your fate in someone else's hands. Pay the full price for your growth, be generous with your energy, and never expect the world to hand you what you haven't earned. It is one thing to intellectually understand that your life is finite, but it is another thing entirely to feel that reality in your bones. When you treat death as a distant, abstract concept, You waste precious days on petty grievances, trivial distractions, and endless procrastination. But when mortality becomes a visceral truth, your entire existence transforms. Minor annoyances lose their grip on your mind, grudges vanish, and every single day becomes an urgent, precious gift. Stop letting vague hopes dictate the direction of your life. Face reality as it is, embrace the discipline of relentless step by step preparation, and navigate the world with quiet, unshakable self control. Master your mind, honor the brevity of your time, and live so deliberately that your actions leave an indelible mark on the world. Most people believe that the most aggressive, ruthless person always wins the game of life. They see the sharks who constantly push, grab, and demand immediate results, and they assume that raw force is the ultimate shortcut. But people who only know how to push will inevitably hit a wall. When you rely solely on aggression, you leave behind a trail of resentment and hostility. You fail to master the soft side of power, the ability to yield, step back, and persuade. Aggression without self control is not strength, it is simply a long, slow path to self destruction. When you clash with someone, yelling or confronting them directly almost never alters their behavior. Direct attacks only trigger ego, pride, and defensiveness. True strategic power relies on insinuation, timing, and reflection. Sometimes the most powerful way to change someone's behavior is to step back, mirror their actions, and let them face the consequences of their own choices. You don't build long-term influence by forcing people to submit. You build it by calmly guiding them to realize their own mistakes. Power is rarely about acquiring endless luxuries or dominating others for pleasure. At its core, real power is the antidote to helplessness. When you lack control over your emotions, your work, or your circumstances, you carry a constant gnawing anxiety. Developing strategic power means gaining the ability to shape your environment, protect what matters, and resolve conflicts with calm strategy instead of frantic panic. It brings a quiet sense of satisfaction and internal stability that fleeting pleasures can never match. Consider how an army fights when its back is pressed against a mountain or the ocean with nowhere to retreat. They fight with desperate, hyper-focused intensity. This is the death ground strategy. When you give yourself endless time and infinite options, you invite hesitation and complacency. But when you create firm deadlines and eliminate soft excuses, your mind wakes up. You stop floating on comfortable promises and start moving with relentless focus because failure is no longer an option you allow on the table. Stop letting circumstances dictate your peace of mind. Learn when to step back, master the indirect path, and hold yourself to an uncompromising standard. Gain complete command over your own reactions, trade loud hostility for quiet strategy, and build a life defined by calm, deliberate, and undeniable authority. Good intention alone is never enough to save you. You can have the purest heart in the world, but if you lack strategy, you will consistently be outmaneuvered by those who understand the dark realities of human nature. Intention does not make a strategy work or fail. It simply determines whether the outcome brings true satisfaction or empty destruction. When you couple noble intentions with sharp, realistic strategy, power stops being manipulative and becomes a tool for protection, balance, and resolution. You must accept that some people are wired from an early age for relentless aggression. They operate on an uncontrollable impulse to grab, push, and conquer, completely blind to the soft side of human relationships. You cannot fix these people, and you cannot appeal to their morality. The moment you understand that their behavior is a fixed, uncontrollable pattern, you stop taking their hostility personally. You learn to observe them with clinical clarity, sidestep their traps, and let their own lack of restraint eventually bring them down. Achieving true mastery requires you to hold two opposing states of mind at once: a grand vision and an intense micro focus. The ultimate dream gives you energy and keeps your spirit alive during long seasons of obscurity, but it is the small daily step that actually executes the vision. Allow yourself to dream just enough to fuel your momentum, but spend 90% of your mental energy locked on to the single task right in front of you today. The ultimate shift happens when mortality ceases to be an abstract thought and becomes a visceral daily truth. When you genuinely feel the brevity of your existence, when you realize that every sunrise, every conversation, and every single day is finite, a profound transformation takes place. Irritations melt away, petty grudges lose their taste, and quiet gratitude replaces constant anxiety. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter, and you move through life with urgent, calm purpose. Stop waiting for circumstances to align, stop expecting people to treat you fairly, and stop relying on good intentions alone. Master the art of stepping back. Break your grandest ambitions into quiet daily steps and develop complete command over your internal world. When you combine strategic awareness with deep self mastery, you become completely unshakable. Never fall for the illusion of a free lunch. When you accept favors, shortcuts, or unearned gifts, you unwittingly hand over your independence. Real power pays its own price in full. Being generous with your time, money, and energy doesn't diminish your leverage. It builds it, ensuring that you never owe your standing or your freedom to anyone else's charity. When you need someone's support, never appeal to their mercy, gratitude, or past loyalty. People rarely act out of obligation or pity. They act out of self-preservation and personal ambition. If you want to move someone to action, frame your request around what they stand to gain. The moment they realize that helping you advances their own vision, resistance vanishes instantly. Radical individualism is often nothing more than pride in disguise. Pretending you are entirely self-sufficient makes you fragile, because life will inevitably bring moments where circumstance forces you to rely on others. True strength lies in accepting that dependency is part of the human condition. When you learn to accept help with quiet humility, you conquer your impatience, break your arrogance, and develop a profound empathy that makes you far more resilient. Every single minute you waste complaining about unfairness or waiting for universal justice is dead time. The world does not reward quiet indignation. It yields to calm strategy, self-reliance, and emotional discipline. Treat every setback as a lesson in self-mastery, every conflict as a test of composure, and every remaining breath as a finite resource that cannot be replaced. Stop hunting for shortcuts. Pay the full price for your growth. Frame your requests around self-interest and transform your vulnerability into deep human understanding. Turn every second into a lifetime. Govern your impulses with absolute authority and build a life that stands completely unshakable. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for the perfect conditions before taking a single bold step. They tell themselves they aren't ready, that they need more experience, or that the timing isn't quite right. But waiting for total readiness is a quiet trap created by fear. If you wait until you feel completely safe and confident, the window of opportunity will already have closed. Real progress requires you to force time. It demands that you take action slightly before you feel entirely prepared. When you step out onto the edge and throw yourself into high-stakes territory, your mind wakes up. The sudden pressure forces a level of focus, energy, and resourcefulness out of you that comfortable planning could never awaken. You do not adapt by sitting on the sidelines, you adapt by entering the arena. Stop expecting people to suddenly alter their fundamental nature to suit your desires. Human behavior is driven by deeply ingrained patterns that were established long before you ever met them. When someone repeatedly shows you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time, stop wasting energy trying to fix or debate them, and start adjusting your strategy to navigate around them. Real power comes from accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It is easy to hold powerful ideas in your mind as mere intellectual concepts. You can read about strategy, talk about self-discipline, or acknowledge that your time on earth is limited, but intellectual knowledge is worthless until it becomes visceral. It must penetrate your emotions, alter your daily habits, and reshape how you view every waking second. Until a concept moves from your head into your blood, it changes nothing. Stop letting hesitation rob you of momentum. Throw yourself into the fire before you feel completely ready. Observe human nature with unblinking realism and translate every piece of knowledge into daily living action. Step up, move with quiet conviction, and command your own fate.